Okay, sorry about that. We had a phone call from my parents, so right in the middle of filming this. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to upload two parts, and then I will upload chapter 15 later today. All right, so she's Miss Thomas is asking questions. We'll talk tomorrow, Bud. I bet you're sick and tired of answering people's questions, aren't you? So Bud responds, I said, yes, ma'am, I am. But I did notice that she said tomorrow. That might mean they weren't gonna send me back to Flint right away. Miss Tyler said, Miss Thomas, and set a plate in front of her, and then said, Mr. Jimmy, and then gave him some food too, then said, steady. Put his plate down so that it rattled a little bit, then said, and finally, the young gentleman, and put a plate crammed with food in front of me. It was the best meal I'd ever had. And when it was done, Miss Tyler brought me a dessert she called On the House. It was a piece of warm, sweet potato pie with some fluffy white stuff called whipped cream swooped all over the top of it. After I shoved the last crumbs of pie in my mouth and scraped up the last little dribbles of whipped cream, I looked around at the people at my table, and I couldn't help breaking out in a big smile. I didn't see it before, but now that I looked, I could tell that Miss Thomas must be the most beautiful woman in the world. When she talked, she moved her hands and fingers around, and the lights from the ceiling and from the little candle on the table would bounce off all of them diamonds and spark up in your eye and make you feel like you'd been hit with some kind of magic fairy dust. Then you couldn't help but smile. All the while she'd hum too, but hum doesn't seem like it's the right word for what she was doing. Most times I'd heard humming before. It was just an excuse for not being able to sing, or something people do if they didn't know the words to a song. That doesn't fit the sounds Miss Thomas was making. You couldn't help but look up and wonder if this was a real human being that was making these sounds. What her humming reminded me most of was that feeling you get when you walk barefoot on a railroad track, and for a long time before you can see it, you can feel the train coming right through the bottoms of your feet. Her humming started slow and easy at first, but then, just like you could feel that train shaking from somewhere off, after a while, Miss Thomas's humming made you feel like something big and strong was passing right by you, and everything on you was getting rattly and shaky and about to get shook loose. It made you want to drop your fork and grab hold of something solid. From hearing this just little bit of humming, I couldn't understand why Mr. Jimmy didn't call her a singer. Singer wasn't a big enough word to take in the kind of music that was jumping out of Miss Thomas's chest. And I didn't notice before how funny Mr. Jimmy was. The stories he was telling about traveling around the country with Herman E. Calloway had us all laughing so much that even the nosy people at all the tables near ours quit eating and were busting their guts and throwing their 2 cents into the stories. The only table that was quiet was where the dusky devastators were sitting. It seemed like Herman E. Calloway could make it just so you wanted to sit and watch your hands with a sad look on your face. And I hadn't noticed before how nice Steady Eddie was either. He talked out of the side of his mouth and kept his eyes kind of blinked halfway down, especially when Miss Tyler would come to our table to see if we were all right, which she did a lot. And he was the first person I'd ever seen who could eat and talk and laugh and drink and sneeze whilst keeping a toothpick dangling out of his mouth. No matter what he'd do, that toothpick always stayed dancing just below his mustache. And Steady Eddie took this time to show me how to hold my lips and how to put my fingers like I was really playing a pretend saxophone. I'm not sure exactly when it happened, if it was when I was scraping up the last little drops of melted whipped cream, or if it was when Mrs. Thomas' fingers got to flinging all that magic fairy dust. But sometimes, while I was sitting in the sweet pea, another seed got to sprouting. Sometime in that smells like heaven place, another mighty maple started digging down its roots and grabbing hold. One second I was laughing my head off, and the next second I was feeling very surprised because something hit me just as hard as Snaggletooth McNevin had smacked Herman E. Calloway. All of a sudden, I knew that of all the places in the world that I'd ever been in, this was the one. That of all the people I'd ever met, these were the ones. This was where I was supposed to be. And Herman E. Calloway could kiss my wrist if he thought he was going to scare me out of this. It was going to take more than a grouchy old bald-headed guy with a tremendous belly to run me out of here. I was smiling and laughing and busting my guts so much that I got carried away, and some rusty old valve squeaked open in me, then whoop, zoop, sloop! Tears started jumping out of my eyes so hard that I had to cover my face with the big red and white napkin that was on the table. I hadn't been this embarrassed since I woke up and found Mrs. Sleet looking at my legs. I could tell that everyone in the sweet pea had stopped laughing and talking and had started looking at me, but I still couldn't quit bawling. Mama used to tell me I only get one chance to make a first impression, and it looked like I was blowing it with the dusky devastators of the Depression. Shucks. Finally, I had to put my face and my arms on top of the table and put the napkin over my head like it was a little blanket, because try as hard as I wanted, it didn't look like I was going to get this doggone valve closed anytime soon. I felt Mrs. Thomas's hand come up under the napkin and rub real soft and slow back and forth over my head. She pulled me out of my chair into her lap and wrapped her arms around me and bounced me up and down on her knee. Dangy, I never had any kind of reputation with the band now. The only thing I could do was hang on to the napkin and try to make it so folks wouldn't notice how wet my face was. She said, so quiet that I was the only one who could hear it, "Okay, baby, okay, I know, sweetheart, I know." Then she started humming again with my ear mashed up against her chest. It felt like all my bones and muscles quit doing their jobs. It felt like something as big as a steam locomotive engine was chugging right past my ear. I wasn't sure if it was her lips or her hand, but something whispered to me in a language that I didn't have any trouble understanding. It said, "Go ahead and cry, bud. You're home." Okay, so that's the end of chapter 14. I will upload chapter 15 in a bit. I just wanted you to, and I'll send you some research stuff after I read chapter 15. But I just want to admit to you guys and just confess that the reason I picked this book, Bud Not Buddy, is because it's about a 10-year-old boy who has a lot of perseverance. And perseverance means that you keep going no matter how rough times are. And the reason I selected this book during this time was because I wanted you to know that as 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, you have a lot more strength than you realize. And I know things are going to be tough. And I know that we've all faced some tough times in the last 3 weeks or so. But I want to let you know, and I hope you get inspiration, that this boy never gave up. Imagine walking all the way from Grand Rapids to Flint and trying to make it there to find something he loved and cared for. And I want to let you know that you guys are going to come better out of this and may not see or be better people because of this experience you guys are going through right now. And I want to encourage you, and I want to challenge you guys to not be, look at the positive things. Be strong like Bud was during this time. The book is not over yet, but there was a reason why I picked this book. I wanted to show you the heart and character of this 10-year-old boy who, despite all these odds given to him, he didn't have a home, didn't have any friends, didn't really trust anybody, but he never gave up, and never once did he feel sorry for himself. And I challenge you to feel the same way. Okay. Love you guys. I will be uploading chapter 15 later. I will be putting on a sweatshirt. And I don't know, you guys won't see my hair because it's kind of messy right now, but it's okay though. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.